Good morning, this is Helen Martis from HypnoFit. How are we this week? So, for Thoughtful Thursday, I thought I would talk about the topic of vulnerability. And the reason why I've chosen this topic is because I've just returned from Professional Speakers Australia in Brisbane. So I go there every single year. So for those of you who don't know, I am a professional speaker, a member of the Professional Speakers Australia Association. And really, in terms of the theme this year up there in Brisbane, this is my 5th convention. It was about vulnerability and about making the biggest impact by allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So you may ask yourself, well, how can you make an impact by being vulnerable? Well, there were a number of speakers who shared their stories with us, and the stories varied so much, but each one of them had something that was in common with the other. And what that was sharing their vulnerability. In other words, sharing a moment in their life where they were really vulnerable, how they came out of that and how that made them stronger. So you may think, well, how does this apply to me? Well, each one of us experiences vulnerability at some point in our life, and, on a consistent basis, really. But we don't show that to the world, do we? We tend to want to show that we're strong, that we're okay, that we've got it all together, when in fact, we are actually not okay on the inside. And so the very first thing that happens when you let people know that you're not okay and that you are vulnerable is that you're more likely to have a connection with them. So people, can't connect to perfection because they're not perfect themselves. So if we're only showing the world that we've got this perfect life and everything is okay and everything is hunky-dory, then they can't connect to us. And so in order to make a real connection with the people in our world, we need to show our true selves. And within our true selves, each one of us experiences difficulties, challenges, adversity, and we are vulnerable. And so I'll give you examples from what was shared with the audience during Australia's during the Professional Speakers Association convention in Brisbane. So one lady, she's a public speaker now, but she shared the story of how many years ago, she was lining up to go into a nightclub, and she was carrying with her in her pocket 13 ecstasy pills. 6 of them she was to distribute between herself and 2 friends, and 6 of them she was going to sell. This is how she made money in order to get through her education. She was studying something at university. In fact, she got 6 degrees, so she was studying quite a bit at university. And she saw ahead of her in the line, she saw police officers. So she then thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with the 12 tablets that I've got in my pocket? And she decided to swallow them. 3 days later, she wakes up in a park with the same song playing over and over and over again that she was listening to. And that song was It's a Beautiful Day by U2. And it was life-changing for her. So it changed her life. At that moment, she decided she was going to change her life. And she sent a message to her mum saying that I'm changing my life, Mum. Everything is behind me now and I'm moving forward. And so she shared that story. So what is she doing by sharing that story with a whole group of people? She's actually putting herself up there for judgment. Because some people in the audience might say, how stupid, she swallowed 12 ecstasy pills at once. But she's sharing her vulnerability. So somebody in that audience would have been able to connect with that kind of decision. There was another person, James Harding, who has an amazing story. So his whole life, he was a standover man known as the Hammer, where in terms of, he worked in organised crime, and he shared his story about what he used to do, and there was no glamour involved in it. He had disconnected completely with his family, and his whole job and his existence was to be a standover man in organised crime. He had about 40 people reporting to him, so a very large group of people reporting to him. So his day of reckoning came when he had a gun pointed at his head, and at that moment, he wasn't religious before then. He made a plea to God and said, if you get me out of this, I promise I will change my life and I will help men just like me. And he did. So he changed his life from that moment on. He's launching his book on the 2nd of July in Melbourne, if anybody's here to see it. And it's all about helping males overcome addictions, just as he had overcome the addictions in his life, which led him down that path. And he openly says, I had a happy childhood. It wasn't my childhood. My parents are not to blame, but it's just the choices that I made. And so many of us make choices, and it doesn't mean that, you know, we have to suffer in shame for the rest of our life for those choices. It means that at any point we can learn from them and we can move forward and we can help other people who have perhaps made those choices as well. So I'm asking you this question about vulnerability. What's your vulnerability? What's something perhaps you're ashamed of? And who can you share it with? Because the moment that you share your shame, there's no shame anymore. So who can you share it with? That's your question to you. What are you ashamed of? What's happened to you? What choices have you made that perhaps you wish you didn't make? And who can you share that with? Who can you open yourself up to? It's amazing to me that even with the clients that I see here at HypnoFit, they can't even share their deepest thoughts with their partner. So maybe that's a start. Can you share it with your partner? Can you share it with a friend? Can you share it with a trusted colleague? I don't know, but you do. But we have all made choices that we have not been proud of. I'm the first to admit that. But it's only when we share our vulnerabilities and share the choices that we made that we haven't been proud of that we're actually able to do something positive with those choices. So that's the thought for the day, for Thoughtful Thursday. Have a great day and a great week. See you later. Bye.